بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Ask Eman, broadcasted live from the London studio of Eman Channel on Sky 757. We're also streaming it live on our Facebook page via our YouTube channel and also on our website emanchannel.tv. Humble reminder, do like, share, comment and subscribe to all our platforms including our Facebook page, YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, now known as X, and of course not to forget our Instagram page. 0203 515 0757, our studio number 079 483, our WhatsApp number. Both the numbers are displayed at the bottom of the screen, and of course international viewers can use the WhatsApp number to call in directly, and feel free to leave your questions in the comment section below, either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, or you can send us a text using the WhatsApp number. I'm your host Qamarul Islam, joining us none other than Fadilat Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's been a long time. Jazakallah khair for giving us your valuable time.
Jazakallah khair.
Now let's start with our conversation, and that is the month of November. So which basically means Islamophobia Awareness Month. Now, the basic question I have heard and I've read, the critics of Islam or the well-wishers, they have commented, is there really a need for such awareness? Because people can pray in public, in outside the Downing Street, in central London, they can freely practice the religion. So why is there a need for an Islamophobia Awareness Month?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Right now, that really is a silly question. We can see so much Islamophobia rampant and rife all over the media. You see it in institutions within the West in general, and here specifically in the UK. You see the discrimination for merely holding, having a badge saying Palestine. Our children are not allowed to express their views and their sentiments and their solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are being massacred. The genocide being committed over there in Palestine right now, which so many people, Muslim and non-Muslim, anyone with an ounce of moral value and principle has acknowledged that what is going on right now is a genocide. And our children are being pressurized and told they cannot speak about these issues in schools. They cannot express any of their views. They cannot show any solidarity with their brothers and sisters who are being massacred in this genocide. May Allah free them and may Allah protect them. That, on top of what we Muslims have been facing for so long anyway, institutionalized racism against us merely because of our names. So many different Muslims have complained about how finding a job has been difficult for them over the, I can remember 15 odd years this has been going on and more. 15 odd years plus I've been Imam, etc. And I've been hearing this for around 20 odd years anyway, even before I was fixed Imam and etc. So Islamophobia is very real. Everyone from the Muslim community has felt it. Our sisters in particular have been feeling it for so long, and they are the ones who experience it at the earliest of ages because visibly they have the symbols of Islam on them, the hijab. You'll find our young sisters who are teenagers, when they are wearing their hijab, they are spat at on the street. They are verbally abused on the street. Our sisters who are wearing the hijab, they get called all kinds of names, including terrorists and the rest of it, just because they are visibly Muslims. So anyone who asks this kind of silly question, is there a need for Islamophobia month or an awareness of Islamophobia, really is out of touch with reality.
Some may say in the school and other places, especially education institution, it's a sensitive matter, a sensitive topic, just to make sure that no sides are upset. Perhaps that's why this subject is perhaps not discussed. How would you respond?
Very easily. Schools and institutions of education are meant to be the places where our young people can develop in not only their physical attributes or in terms of their intellect, but in terms of their emotions, in terms of their psychology, in terms of social behaviors and interactions, etc. We have heard and we all know this is not true. And the current predicament and the current goings on in the world prove the hypocrisy of the West that claims to be the greatest advocate for freedom of speech. Schools and institutions of education were meant to be the flag bearers of freedom of speech. If you suppress a people from speaking about issues that are relevant to them, you are not going to make any situation better. Rather, you're going to build up anger within people, and then you're waiting for something to go off inside them, and then they are more likely to do something silly, inappropriate, etc. Whereas if they feel free to express their emotions, express their sentiments, talk about these things, see other perspectives in a safe environment, then you are more likely to get balanced, well-nurtured, and appropriately behaved citizens on the street. Now, what we're facing right now is the suppression of any narrative that is not in line with the Zionist narrative. We see it in the media, and we see that in the institutions of education, and we see that all across the board. Now, unless that changes and the suppression of people's sensitivities continues, if that continues, you're waiting for something negative to happen. And it's a really silly philosophy, only working towards producing something very negative in the future.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for that. And just some clarification, Sheikh, whatever he's mentioning. Number one, it's what's been mentioned on mainstream print media, including the broadcast media. Journalists, commentators, broadcasters have commented about what's currently happening. That's number one. Number two, with regards to Islamophobia, Islam rejects any form of racism. That's including anti-Semitism. And of course, any other sort of racism that's there. Islam never condones any behavior. And number three, our sheikhs, our beloved guests, they are qualified, and of course they speak according to the best of their understanding, and when they give answer, respond to any of your Islamic question and answer is based on Quran and Sunnah and authentic. And of course, Eman Channel does not have any view what the guests do say. And also, Sheikh, just to give you a perspective, I was looking into this matter, and census 2021, it says that 67.33 million is the UK population. Out of that, those that have identified as Muslim, 2021 again, 6.5% are Muslim, which is 3.9 million. Let's round it to 4 million. We're in 2023 now, which basically means the last time census was done in 2011, 4.9% were Muslim, so which was 2.7 million. So from 4.9% to 6.5% in a span of 10 years, 3.9, around 4 million. So we are just 4 million. Yet, just to give some data, in terms of Islamophobic hate crime alone, as per Home Office data, where the perceived religion of the victim was recorded, 2 in 5 of all religious hate crime offences were targeted against Muslim as of March 2023. As such, 39% of religiously motivated hate crimes targeted Muslims, making Muslim the most targeted faith groups. And Muslims have in fact remained consistently and especially vulnerable to religiously motivated hate crime offences. In the year ending March 2021, 45% of all recorded religious hate crime offences in England and Wales were targeted against Muslim. In the year ending March 2019, 47% of all recorded religious hate crime offences in England and Wales were targeted against Muslim. And just in the recent time, due to the conflict, we have seen a surge of hate crime with a 140% increase in Islamophobic offences in London alone. And of course, not to forget the Islamophobic attack, the suspected arson attack at the Oxford Mosque. A Muslim woman was thrown as concrete slab. And of course, alcohol being poured over a Muslim worshipper praying at a protest. And of course, in America, people have been murdered, a young child of 6-year-old and a sister. So of course, this is real. And I've got literally 1.5 minutes. Thoughts on what I've just said?
It's very, very normal for this to happen when you have a media that has demonized Muslims. It's as simple as that. Wherever print media or on the social media that you look at, Muslims have been demonized for so many years. And this intensified when 9/11 happened and furthermore after that. But it's always been there. Now, when you do this to a people, you are telling others to treat them as subhuman beings and therefore violate them. You are doing this whether you perceive it or not, and we shouldn't be so naive as to think that this is not part of the agenda. Because, you know, intellectual people, organizations, institutions who are doing this day in, day out, who have been told this is going on and this is the consequence, they don't get the message. It's very clear. So that murder that happened in America of that 6-year-old child is where you're sending people when you dehumanize an ethnic minority like this.
Thank you. And Sheikh was referring to the 6-year-old Palestinian American Wadi Al-Fayoni in his own home, brutally, sadly murdered. And just to clarify, innocent lives lost anywhere is certainly tragic, and it's something that we all, when we hear, are sad. Inshallah, we'll go for a short break. Do stay tuned with us. We'll continue the questions after a short break. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. In the first segment, if you have missed it, we talked about the Islamophobia Awareness Month and why it's important for us that we make not ourselves educated about the subject of Islamophobia, but at the same time, the wider society should also be aware of what challenges a Muslim face and what kind of things that affect us, especially as Muslims, especially when we practice Islam, and how it affects our mental health and how it affects us going about day to day, doing our day-to-day activities. And inshallah, if you've missed it, then please feel free to find us either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to all our platforms. Contact details are displayed at the bottom of the screen. Now, we shall be moving on to the first video question. I'd like to remind our viewers, if you'd like to send us any video questions, please keep it concise, short, to the point, and make sure that you're aware of your background, and do send us a question, and inshallah we'll try our level best to play in the program. Now let's move on to our first video question.
My name is Nabil, and my question is, are student loans allowed?
Student loan, even though the academic year has already started, but I understand obviously next semester in January we'll be starting a new academic year. Generally, of course, it's September, and this is one of the contention, like whenever either January, especially the September intake is there's a lot of debate. When I say a lot of debate, you would see it online. You would say, oh, I'm not going to university because I don't want to incur any interest, whereas the other group says, no, if I don't become a doctor or an engineer or an accountant or a lawyer, etc., how is the Muslim society going to be benefited in this country or in the wider society? And how can we contribute? How do you respond?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Yani these types of thoughts and views don't actually affect whether the student loan is halal and haram. The issue with the student loan is that we as Muslims, we know that riba or usury, interest, this is haram for us. So in terms of when you have a transaction where you give money and then you get a different amount of money back, okay, so you're giving money over a period of time and you take more money back, or the other way around, this kind of transaction is haram and problematic. Now, in this case, it looks on the face of it, some people look at this transaction, the student loan, as an actual loan because it says loan. Okay, it's as if the student loan company is giving you an amount of money and you're paying back a greater sum of money to them. So therefore, people think that this is a loan. Now, if you look at experts who've looked into the contracts, you'll find that this is not actually a loan, it's actually a tax. So there's no legislation or there's nothing in the contract that will force you to pay back all of that money that you have taken out. Rather, there's a set amount that they will take from your monthly salary when you earn over a particular threshold. And they will continue to take that for a period of time, even though they will not recoup all of the money that they have given you. So even now, and they've changed it recently, they used to actually get back a lot less from the students who took the loan or the so-called loan. Now they've upped the amount they're going to recoup from the amount they give you in maintenance. But still, there's nothing in the contract that says that they can force you to pay back the whole loan. So, as the experts on this issue have said, this is a tax for studying rather than a loan. Okay? A tax for studying rather than a loan means that this is not a ribawi transaction. And therefore, the student loan, as it is currently, is halal. Now, I was at a conference where we discussed this issue, and there's various different fatwa on the internet showing you in detail how there is no way that they can force you to pay back the whole loan. Therefore, it is not a loan in that sense, rather it is a tax. So you can refer to those types of articles on that issue for further details. So in a nutshell, Islamically, it's not a ribawi transaction because it is not an actual loan. Rather, it's a tax for those who have studied and taken out what they call the maintenance loan.
Thank you very much for that. And let's also reflect and think about when we go and see GP, especially when it comes to our sister, wife, mothers, etc. What do we want? We want a female doctor, a female nurse to treat our mothers, our sisters, our wives, etc. So therefore, if our sisters, brothers are not educated, and if Allah has given them the intellectual ability, and if they do not fulfill it, their future will be challenging. And that's why, as Shaykh has mentioned, for further detail, please do refer to those articles and have a one-to-one conversation with a qualified scholar that understands both the financial aspect and, of course, the Shari'i aspect. Second question will be taken from WhatsApp. It's an interesting question. What is death according to Islam? Does it mean perishing, annihilation? Is our physical death the end of our existing? And if there is life after death, is it spiritual, physical, or both?
Okay. Death in Islam, as in all the revealed religions, this is a physical concept, a reality that a person goes through. In the famous hadith of Jibreel, alayhi salam, where the Prophet ﷺ was visited by the angel Jibreel, alayhi salam, and then the angel asked him several questions. In the second part, or the second question that Jibreel, alayhi salam, asked, he asked him about the pillars of faith. And one of the pillars of faith is to believe in life after death. Now, death in Islam is where the soul is separated from the body. Now, Allah talks about this issue when we sleep. He is the one, Allah is the one, يَتَوَفَّى الْأَنفُسِ هِينَ مَوْتِهَا. Yani He is the one who causes the death, causes souls to pass away and become detached from the bodies when they die. And also He does that when you sleep. There's a very loose connection between the body and the soul when you sleep. And that connection, when Allah causes death, He cuts that connection. So that connection is cut and the body is there and the soul is now in a place called barzakh, between this world and the next. It's the first stage of the next world. Now, is this a physical thing? Is it a metaphysical thing? Is it a spiritual thing? No, this is both a physical reality and a spiritual reality. It is moving from one world to the next. We don't have all of the details of it. But Islamically, and in all the other revealed religions, it is a real physical reality. And many of the scholars, they've described how scenes have been seen in graveyards where they see the dead come out of the graves and run because they're being tormented. So Islamically, when a person is in the grave, there is a punishment in the grave and there is a delight in the grave. So the believer is in delight and feeling that physical bliss and that spiritual or metaphysical bliss, emotional bliss, psychological bliss, whereas the disbeliever is being punished in the grave before they get to the final destination after the Day of Judgment. So it's a severing of the connection between the soul and the body, and then there is another type of connection, but both are physical realities, and the physical reality after death is something that the living cannot perceive. And Allah knows best.
So what should we be more concerned about, just in general, that how, in what state we will leave the world, or what happens once we pass away?
Yeah, it's something that we want to know as human beings. There's a there's a natural concern of what happens, and we want to know. And the Prophet ﷺ, therefore, was given guidance and gave us the details of everything that's going to happen. You know, he told us when the person dies, you know, his actions are cut off except for three. He told us that the person who's in the grave, put in the grave, he hears the footsteps of his family leave. He told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the angels, Munkar and Nakir, they come and they question the person in the grave. Then he told us what happens after the questioning. So the Prophet ﷺ gave us all those details because by nature, we are inquisitive. We want to know what's going to happen next. And the worst thing for us as human beings, if you look at what worries us the most, is not knowing what's going to happen next. So the Prophet ﷺ gave us those details. But yes, when the man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Mata sa'a, when is the hour? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, Mada a'dadta laha, what have you prepared for that hour? And the hour for every individual is their time of death.
Excellent. 1 minute, 20 seconds. Let's see if we can cover. Just wanted to know, what is the ruling on receiving cash back on credit cards?
Okay, so here, this is a transaction for money for money, where there's a difference in what's happening here. So again, this is a problematic transaction, right? So when you pay money for something, you can't start getting money back, extra money. This is another discrepancy. Now, if you're paying for an item, you buy the item. As soon as you involve money into that transaction, you are falling into a problematic area, which is a ribawi transaction. So something like that should be avoided.
So if it's an element of gharar and doubt is there, so
this is not the gharar issue. Okay. This is a ribawi issue, which is much worse.
Right, okay.
Gharar is one aspect that the Sharia doesn't allow, but riba is the greatest type of dhulm when it comes to transactions. And there, if there's money for money with discrepancies in your transaction, then it's part of that ribawi transaction.
And just in 1 second, gharar, what does it mean in English?
Gharar means ambiguity in the transaction.
That's clear. Hope that is clear to our viewers. It's time for another break. We'll be right back in a few moments. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. 0203 515 0757, our studio number, 07916841483, our WhatsApp number. International viewers can use the WhatsApp number, and feel free to leave your questions in the comment section below, either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, streaming it live on both the platforms and also via our website, emanchannel.tv. Now, Shaykh, next question. Let's start. Is there a ruling or opinion on the sharing of graphic content, even if the intent is to bring awareness of human suffering?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Now, graphic content, this could mean so many different things. Now, the Sharia stipulates for us to abide by certain guidelines in terms of dress code, and therefore what you can see of another human being. So the restriction is you are not allowed to see the aura of another human being. So the aura for a man is between the navel and the knee. That's the first aspect. And the aura for a woman, the woman has to cover her whole body. And some of the scholars say, with the exception of the face and the hands. So in general, sticking to the Islamic guidelines is to adhere to not showing more than this of the two sexes when you're putting any images out there. Now, on top of this, the Muslim muhtaram is noble and should be respected, hayyan wa mayyitan, whether he is alive or dead. The deceased should not be shown in a way that is abusive or disrespectful to that deceased person. So if you're talking about the graphic images of what is happening now in Gaza, we know there have to be images shown of the atrocities that have been committed. Because the world needs to know about the genocide that is taking place, that every human being with any ounce of morality has witnessed, has attested to, people from great organizations and individuals, the population. And you can see the world population is with the people of Palestine who are suffering at the hands of this genocide. Now, showing some of those images, okay, has to be done because there is a greater purpose, but we need to do it in a dignified way.
Oh, just to clarify, graphic does not only, because there's different form, still graphics, motion graphics, then in videos, and then we've got children, then we've got sisters, women, etc. And sometime when it comes to the hijab rule you mentioned, perhaps that is not appropriately shown as per the Sharia. And now a lot of people would say, are you focusing on the small things when the bigger things are happening?
No, we're focusing on all of it. Now, the Sharia said, don't do this. So therefore, going against the Sharia is going to bring about greater problems. Yes, there need to be images, but we need to be respectful of our shuhada. At the end of the day, these Muslims who have suffered and I'm not going to use the word killed, but have been martyred. Because when the Prophet ﷺ says a person who's killed because of their deen, because of their property, because of what's going on, they are martyrs. Now we need to be respectful of them. And we when we are able, we need to follow the Sharia guidelines. Now, we're not going to be able to control all of that because there's Muslims and non-Muslims who are taking images and putting those images out on social media, on the media in general. But if a Muslim is asking what are the guidelines for doing this, then number one, stick to the guidelines of the Sharia. You're not allowed to show things that are the aura of such a person because it's being put out there into the public view. That's what the Sharia says. And be respectful of our deceased. These are the two main guidelines. And at the same time, do it this way and convey the message of the massacres that are occurring, the genocide that is happening. Now, if we do that, we're both going to please Allah and achieve the objective in the world. If we don't follow the Sharia guidelines and we just put out the mass messages, then we have not respected our deceased, our praiseworthy resistance from our Muslim brothers and sisters in Palestine, who are not going to bend over and are willing to give their lives to stay put because that is their land. So adhering to all of it is that which is best for us.
Jazakallah khairan for that clarification. It's not a political show, it's a Q&A show, but because our viewers are asking the question, and that's why we're obliged to respond to the question that are asked. However, if you need, especially if any of our non-Muslim viewers are watching the program, and if you would find out or if you require further clarification, then that's the opportunity. Please pick up the phone and dial 0203-515-0757. And of course, my viewers, you can send us any question that you think is appropriate and you'd like to find an answer, and inshallah we'll try as always to put those questions to our respected guest. Next question, is Qunut al-Nazila becoming a fashion?
Qunut al-Nazila is done when the Muslims are suffering in a way that is abhorrent and it's horrific, and the Muslims need to show their solidarity and they gather together to make dua. Now, to call it a fashion belittles this part of our worship. The Muslims have not gone through such an atrocity which the world is looking at, such as this atrocity, this genocide that's taking place right now. Other genocides have taken place, but it was never so public, never to the extent that everyone knows what's going on, and never to the extent that the whole world sees it live and no one lifts a finger to do anything. So Qunut al-Nazila in this situation is the very least we can do.
Now, what the viewer perhaps is trying to find out, if I can just on behalf of viewers, if I understand it, that now there are events happening, Qunut al-Nazila, and then there's fundraising event there. There are events that has got tickets on it and advertised as Dua Qunut al-Nazila will be there. Masajids are advertised, promoting it, my viewers would say. So is it like some masajids do it, other masajids they don't do it? So where is the consistency there?
Masajid will make their own decisions because the jurisprudence in this does differ. Some madhabs, some juristic schools won't do the Qunut al-Nazila. It's not part of their madhab. So that's a decision that, depending on the madhab or the juristic school that mosque follows, they'll make that decision based upon their fiqh. That's normal. Now, in an event that takes place, again, those organizers of that event, they will have a madhab that they follow, and therefore their jurisprudence will follow that madhab. So advertising it like that is just saying to the people, we are going to do our prayers like this because of the current situation. So it's not a fashion, rather it's notifying the people how they're going to pray the salah, which is very important. If you go to the event and you're not of that fiqh persuasion and you don't want to do it like that, you won't go. But if you are of the fiqh that endorses that, you will go. And at the same time, all of these events are there in solidarity with our brothers and sisters. So really these events, as long as they are adhering to the Islamic guidelines and helping our brothers and sisters, there's no need to criticize such events.
Okay, Jazakallahu khairan for that. Next question on WhatsApp. Is it permissible to have the name of the deceased on a plaque just to know where the grave is?
Yeah, many scholars have allowed that, allowing what's the word? The engraving of the name on a small flat plate on the grave, just to identify whose grave that is. So many scholars have allowed that, not being a problem. The problem is having these big tombstones on the grave, such that it resembles the graves of Christians, etc.
Recently, I visited a grave, and I've seen now people are taking flowers to the grave. Muslim cemetery, is it something from Islam?
The Prophet ﷺ never put flowers on a grave, nor did the companions, nor is it part of our fiqh. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala and many other scholars, they criticize it. This is not from our religion. When you go to the graveyard, the Prophet ﷺ, he advised us, first he advised not to go to the graveyards. Then he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Zuruha, فإنها تذكر بالموت." Visit the graves because they remind you of death. Now, when you go to the graveyard in Al-Madinah, okay, Al-Baqi', where many of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are buried, you really feel like you are amongst death. It's very, very simple. There's no flowers, no grass, nothing. It's bare. When you enter that graveyard, you remember death without fail. The problem is you can't imitate that in the West because there are certain rules and regulations, and you have to keep it green, etc. So you can understand why it's kept green in the West in general, and specifically the UK. But at the same time, putting flowers there, making it a nice, pleasant picnic type area, that is a problem.
Okay.
Because it will take away from us remembering death when we go to the grave.
Jazakallah khairan for that. So basically, in other words, whatever we do when it comes to Islam and act of ibadah, it has to be according to the authentic sources. And if it's not there, then let us abstain from it. And if we are not sure, let us find out from qualified scholars and act accordingly. My dear viewers, if you have just tuned in, you're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. We are also live on Facebook page, YouTube channel, as well as streaming it live via our website, emanchannel.tv. The contact details are displayed at the bottom of your screen, and inshallah, we shall be continuing asking questions to Shaykh after a short break. You're watching Ask Eman. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757, and it is the last segment with Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. Contact details are displayed at the bottom of the screen, and once again, humble reminder, do like, share, comment and subscribe to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, follow us on X or Twitter, and of course our Instagram page. Now Shaykh, let's swiftly move on to a next question, and I think it's a hadith, but please if you can clarify if it's authentic. Whoever reads these 5 surahs after each salah, that is after Fajr, Surah Yasin, after Dhuhr, Surah Fath, after Asr, Surah Naba, after Maghrib, Surah Waqi'ah, and after Isha, Surah Mulk, will be among the cupbearers of the pond of Kawthar. Now obviously we understand we don't have enough time to go into the details, but I understand the viewer is trying to find out, and the question is this authentic?
Okay, now the practice itself, reading Quran, if we zoom out a bit, reading Quran after any prayer is something good. You know, you can read as much Quran as possible after the prayers, and it's a very good habit to read a portion of the Quran every day and as much as you can. And if you break it up around the salahs, it gives you 5 different interactions with the Quran in a day. So that in itself is a good practice. No one can say to you, don't do that. Now, specifying particular surahs and thinking they're going to get a specific benefit. Now, if you did this, okay, you're not going to be harmed. You're not going to lose out. Rather, you're going to gain. If you were to read these surahs as it was after these salahs, you're going to benefit. You're going to get the reward for minimum. Each letter you read, 10 rewards. And these surahs, obviously, they have different sizes and there's lots of reward to be had. So doing that in itself, not a problem. Okay, and if you want to read particular surahs and you choose the surahs you want to read after each salah, not a problem. The problem occurs if you're going to attach a specific virtue to it without there being an authentic narration from the Prophet ﷺ specifying that attitude. Now, this particular type of narration, if it is a narration, I do not know it to be authentic at all. I would have to go and check if it is an actual narration. So I don't know of it being a narration, and definitely not a practice that has been endorsed by our scholars. So I would say, rather than do it this way, I would say read the Quran from beginning to end, and every day after every salah, spend 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes if you can, reading from where you left off in the Quran, and that way you will hopefully finish the Quran at least once every month.
There are certain virtues of a certain surah. For example, in this particular hadith that the person was trying to find out, we don't know whether it's authentic or not. However, after Isha reading Surah Al-Mulk, we know there is a benefit of reading Surah Al-Mulk before going to bed.
Yep.
Is that right? On Friday, reading Surah Al-Kahf. So there are certain things of surahs read at certain time. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's some that are authentic, like the ones you mentioned, and Ayatul Kursi before you go to bed, and
Correct.
the last verses of Surah Al-Baqarah,
Yeah.
and reading the 3 quls before you go to bed. So these are some of the authentic ones. Yet these specific ones, there's a lot of very weak hadith and fabricated hadith on these types of surah. So that's why I say, you know, the virtue is in reading as much Quran as possible. So if the person sticks to beginning the Quran and continuing such that they complete the Quran as often as possible, that would be better, inshallah.
Thank you very much. And one thing I would like to our viewers, especially to take a note. Sheikh said, "I'm not sure, I don't know," and that's something we need to understand and learn. When it comes to making any comments, especially I see on social media, like if we're not qualified, and I see often, I think this is in Islam how you should do it. I think in Islam this is what it is, and that's dangerous. And that's something, if we do not have the academic knowledge, if we do not have a sound knowledge, if we are not qualified, let us ensure, as Shaykh said, if we don't know, we say don't know. We don't get involved, we check and then come back. But we do not speak what we don't know. Is that correct, Shaykh?
Of course, 100%.
Jazakallah khairan.
And on this issue, just to make it very concrete, I do not know this as a hadith and something that the scholars of the past used to practice. So
Excellent.
We leave it at that.
Jazakallah khairan for that. Now, next question. It sounds simple, but I don't know. You can let me know whether it's a simple question or not. If someone is sent Quranic ayat or a hadith on their phone, can they delete it? Will this be considered disrespectful?
Yani, deleting a message is not like yani, burning or disposing and putting la qaddar Allah, putting part of the verses of Allah in the bin or something like that. This is just removing it from your phone because of storage capacity, etc. So it's not disrespectful at all. And if you think about it, when Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu compiled the Mus'haf and sent it out to the different capitals of the Muslim empire, he ordered for any personal copies at that time, because now the Mus'haf, the Quran, was standardized. Any personal copies had to be burned. So burning the Mus'haf to remove the contentions that had been created in the Ummah about the Quran at the time, disputes about it, personal copies being burnt, was a respectful way of getting rid of copies of the Quran. Okay, so deleting is similar to that because you remove it and it's gone completely.
Thank you. I'll be honest, I never thought of that before, this question, because obviously storage, as you have mentioned, we delete those images or pics, and never occurred. But thank you very much for sending anyway, a good question that perhaps I've never crossed my mind.
Coming from the point of the Iman of the person, correct. You only want to respect and venerate the Quran,
indeed,
the words of Allah.
Jazakallah khair for that. Now, before we move on to the next question, let's move on to our callers. Let's see who's on the line. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for calling in. Your question, please?
Yeah, that's my question.
Sorry, I did not hear your first question. I think there's an issue with the reception. If you can kindly repeat your first question, please.
Okay. So my question is on halal meat and the purchase of halal meat.
Okay, why is that? What prompted you to ask that question? Just so we can know the background.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead. Why? What's the reason for asking this question? Is there any particular things that you've heard? Or?
Okay, so at the moment, these days, there's lots of European...
There's an issue with your network. I cannot hear you now. Are you there? Okay, we'll let you go. There's an issue with the network, but we've understood your question, and I think Sheikh gets the sense of where you're coming from. But let's find out. Sheikh, your thoughts?
Yeah, halal meat is very important to Muslims because meat that has not been slaughtered in accordance to the Sharia, in accordance to our ritual slaughter, is not allowed for us to eat. So obviously, we want to eat meat, and therefore it must be slaughtered in a halal way. Now, as long as the meat has been slaughtered in the halal way, following our way of slaughter, saying Bismillah, Wallahu Akbar by a Muslim, slaughtering it in this manner, then it will be halal. Whether it comes from a European country or whether it comes from somewhere else, doesn't matter, as long as the way it's been slaughtered is within our ritual method of slaughtering and is done by a Muslim. So yes, it's very important because otherwise we can't eat the meat. Otherwise the meat for us would be haram and therefore not allowed for us to eat. And obviously as human beings, we like to eat meat and therefore it's very important. Now, where it comes from, which country, as long as the ritual slaughter is followed, then that doesn't matter.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Next question from Fahim Khan on YouTube. I think this is in reference to the previous question that we answered with regards to cashback on credit card. And now, what about inflation? You should equate inflation as well. Almost every business involves a bank loan or credit facility. That would mean everything is haram. It's like a comment there.
No, it wouldn't. Okay, things, prices go up.
That's correct.
What transactions has the Sharia stipulated that we cannot get involved in, that are prohibited in Islam? Transactions where money is given and money comes back with a different amount. These are the problematic transactions which the Sharia has said you cannot indulge in. So the issue is not just transactions and all types of transactions. It's these particular types of transactions. And it's not restricted to just money transactions, but dates for dates and barley for barley and wheat for wheat, etc. So there are categories that you have to be very careful how you deal with them. Now, money is one of them and the core problematic one. So here, when you're dealing with money for money, whenever you're taking a loan, in Islam, you're only allowed to, if I take a loan from Qamar here, I pay back exactly what I took. I can't be paying
not a penny
more or less. So
extra.
Not a penny extra. Otherwise, it's interest. And that is the haram. And because of that, we are in the problem economy right now because everything is based upon this ribawi or usury that we see predominant in the world.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Literally, I've got less than 60 seconds. You've talked about the graphic content, the honor or the izzah for a deceased Muslim. Is it deceased Muslim or deceased human, any human?
Yeah, we need to treat any deceased person with respect.
Okay.
And our values do not allow any type of dishonoring of the deceased. Even when the non-Muslim died, the Prophet ﷺ was always respectful in dealing with deceased people.
Jazakallah khair. I would love to continue, but our time is up. But inshallah, we look forward to seeing you in our future episode.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thanks to our viewers who've asked us questions, sent us questions, and inshallah, you can join us next time, which is tomorrow at 8 o'clock. If Sheikh has expressed any personal views, then that is his. And of course, the channel does not bear any responsibility. But for any further clarification, you can email us. Until next time, wassalamu alaikum.